Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. For those of you joining us, we're the Recruit podcast powered by Dwerk, who specialize in helping recruitment businesses scale their revenue over the next 12 months. If you want to learn how to take your recruitment business to the next level, make sure to stick around for this conversation. Today, we have Surinder Bhagat, founder and CEO of Gigan AI. Surinder, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Karan, thank you for having me with you today. It's a real pleasure to be with you, and I'm looking forward for the podcast. I believe there will be a lot of things that we may end up discussing. So I'm Surinder. Like I said, I am founder and CEO of Gigan. It's a passion, passion which built almost like over entire careers of mine, where I have juggled and struggled with various things, that we used to do in HR. Specifically, I realized that whichever company I have, been to, be it very, very deep high-tech companies or startups, people struggle with hiring, and that takes down the efficiencies of the company and can impact people in a very big way. With all the AI and latest stuff, which was coming in, we had this big vision of, making sure that we take the inefficiencies out, bring the cost down. That's a large vision we are looking at, right? Because, despite of everything going into the right direction, you have all the tools, you have all the technologies, you have various things to take care of, various steps of recruiting. It is becoming more and more difficult. There has been a recent survey and research which is saying that the average time to hire people still is 44 days on a global basis. However, it's not coming down. Last 3-4 years, it has gone up rather than coming down. Almost 60% companies, are seeing their time to hire going up. I think there are only very few companies, 6% or so, who are seeing that it is going down, and the rest of it, are struggling at the same level. So that's what we are working towards. Make life of people who are hiring super easy and super cost efficient, and something that they can bring their passion to the job.
Sure, absolutely, and it's very important in in this day and age. I think something like that is massively helpful. I suppose if we dig a bit deeper into your role, so obviously founder and CEO, running this company, what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, it is. It's there. It's like a roller coaster ride. If you have done that. So as a founder, we are onto roller coaster most of the time. There'll be there'll be moments of desperation. There'll be moment of, oh yeah, we have achieved something, and then we have not even started yet. So everything you see in a day. So, but one other thing which has been working very well for us as a team is how we are together as one team through the day, right? So what we do is that usually we start our day with just a kind of catch up at every level, at the leadership level, at the next level, where we talk about what is it that we're going to do today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a goal setting which is happening almost on daily basis. Those daily goals are aligned on weekly with the weekly goals, and those weekly goals are aligned with our quarterly goals. So that start of the day sets the tone of the day. So we keep in touch with us, with through the day, the sales team, the tech team, the product team, everybody else. Towards the evening, we also do another catch up on what did we achieve today. So that
Right.
close of the day. So I think this is a very typical, way of how we have been performing. It's not something that you see very often. It's not something that that's there as a textbook formula, but it just evolved, with us over the time, and gives us a very good and tight control of execution. We are multi-country right now, by the way, and that helps us to make sure that we are in control of whatever execution is happening.
Amazing. Seems very organized, and of course you have to be for the kind of operation you're running and at the scale you're running as well. I suppose if we look at gigging a little bit, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was potentially the one thing or things you noticed in the industry that made you think, okay, we need this in the industry now?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my own experiences, Karan, and I'll tell you how. If I just go back and see all of my roles, in HR leadership, I have, operated at various levels of leadership, multi-country roles, and CHROs and everything else. Right. One of the things which you often hear from people is that HR is not strategic, right? Now,
Mhm.
what does that really mean, right? I think when you're working in very, very, world leader companies, the companies who have really achieved something, people who are your business side, they won't be saying something just for the heck of it, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I started to think deeper, I think there was a fact to it because, you know, um, most of the investment that goes inside the companies these days is on people. They're the most expensive resource. In some companies, this cost of people goes as high as 80%. In certain, it could be 60% or anything in between, right? Now, you would expect that people which is the largest investment, are strategically managed by HR. But what HR ends up doing is this, you are scheduling the interviews, you are screening the resumes, you are doing all the day-to-day collection of the interviews that have happened. I in one of the company I was in, right, it was a very big, and it's not one of the, most of the companies, it becomes like a hectic job even to collect the feedback of interview. And by the time you have done, taking all the this thing back, it actually goes back, you lose the candidate, right?
Hmm.
So, when you're somebody has to do this job, and that somebody becomes HR. Now, when HR is struggling with all of these operations, right? How do you expect the HR to be strategic? So I know I have empathy, but with because that's a function I've been into throughout my life. But I think all those things. If you take the pure operations away, what are you left with is a lot of bandwidth you can put actually on your strategic stuff, right? Which means that you can talk to people. HR is a people function. You can talk to people. You can come up with some real good insights. You can come up with taking the decision. Hey, this is the candidate I want to go ahead with. Engage with people. All of that stuff, right? And
Hmm.
then we have been able to achieve that. With quite a bit of things. We our tool actually takes over all the operations. It takes over
Hmm.
all the work which is that in some cases it gives you almost like more than 60% of your day back. So that
Wow.
kind of thing it gives you back, so which means that you can focus on your core job rather than doing the operations. And I can go into details later if you want. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, that's a great point, right? Because you built a tool that's able to reduce that operational drag, which of course frees up the time for the people to do the more meaningful work potentially. I suppose, you've been running now for, I believe, just over 4 years. Is that correct?
Yes, close to 4 years. Yeah.
Close to 4 years. So in terms of from when you started and where you are right now, if we look more industry side, what are sort of the biggest shifts you've seen across those 4 years in the market?
Yeah, this is interesting, right? When we started 4 years ago, I don't think AI was such a big
Mm,
word at that point in time, right?
yeah.
However, from day zero, we were very clear that the problem that we are solving, we cannot solve without, and that goes to the fact that we did not name our company almost like 4 or 5 years ago as
Mm,
Gigant.com or Gigant dot, something, right? So it
yeah.
was Gigant.ai from day zero, right? There was a very clear, I think, clear and strong belief with us that if we have to solve this problem, it has to be something different. Because if you keep doing what others have done, you almost will end up hitting the same solution, right? And that was the
Mm,
thought process. We did that, and I think while we were doing it, we saw a lot of shift happening, in the market, specifically in the AI space, right?
mm,
Our solution is a complete AI. It's called Agentic AI. That's a technology we are using.
mm,
But that shift actually has now given us a lot of tailwinds in which we are now able to see that adoption is easy. Earlier, it was not. Adoption. When
mm,
you talk about AI, people have a lot of thoughts and suspicions and those things, right? But now, when we talk to people, it almost comes as a magic when they see the solution that, hey, oh
mm,
wow, this is what it can do for us, all that stuff, right? So
yeah.
that's a shift in the industry we are seeing. And there are a lot of things going on, it will take the jobs away, etc., etc. I personally have different thoughts over that, but that's a big shift in industry. AI getting into things, AI making jobs thing easy. At the same time, bit of reluctance coming from various places, and it happens whenever you're going through such a massive change. People
Mhm.
would react with different thought process. So yeah, so that's a shift we are seeing right now.
Yeah, of course. I think that's something that I suppose founders of companies are seeing probably across industries, right? Because as it's growing, as it's becoming a much more household thing using AI. It's people are more receptive to it, and of course, there's going to be those people that are still not receptive to it, and of course, over time that will only change.
Yeah.
And I suppose now, as you see more and more firms open to using AI, how has this changed the way you're thinking about growth at Gigan?
So if I step back, right, if I just look at how when we were presenting Gigin solution some time ago and versus when we are presenting it now, the difference is huge. Now we are seeing a lot of inbounds to us where people are reaching out after learning from others. Hey, you have a AI solution, I want to talk to you. And earlier it was more of a push from our side. So definitely there's a change. The other good part is that chat GPT and things like those, right? It has become like a household thing now. If you talk to kids who are passing out, maybe doing the graduation, etc., they are I in fact have this like very strong interest of keep meeting youngsters. And when I see it, there's a huge trend change. People are not going and searching on the web now. All they do is that either you are on Claude or you are on you are on Chat GPT and things like that, right? So you don't need to now
Yeah,
tell people to use AI. In fact, if your product doesn't have AI, then you should be worried. You should be deeply scared that, hey, what will happen to my product. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we look at a little bit about gigging itself, so of course you mentioned this agentic AI for recruiters,
Mhm.
but what does that actually mean in practical terms for a recruiter using the platform? If you go a little bit in detail of what that means.
Yeah, I will just give you a little bit of high level overview. I wish I could have taken you from a demo of the product, but maybe some other time. But look at it like this, right? If you look at, let's break it down into two pieces, right? When you're doing the recruiting and the kind of tools you use, right? The
Hmm.
first thing that you need to do is create a job description. Some of the time it's a manual process. Some of the time you have some tools which can you do it for you. Some of the times you have a company policy that, hey, this is a template, capture these things, etc., etc. When you do that, right, the second thing that you get into is you have to market your job. You have to broadcast your job, right? So which means that everybody should know that you're hiring. Now, despite so you make the branding of the job. Other thing is that many times, and I have seen that myself, a lot of people who are applying to you are not the people you are looking up to, because they are one in the market, and or they're looking for job, etc., etc. But maybe the people you are looking at, they are not looking out for the job, which is called passive job seekers, which means
Hmm.
that you want to reach out to them, then they are reaching out to you, right? So
Right.
that's the other aspect of, how do you reach the passive job seekers through your job broadcast, right? So once you have done that, which is second step, right? There are
Hmm.
various tools that you can use to do that, but you need to collect now all of these resumes from various places. Companies, there are resumes coming from referrals. Some companies, they send their jobs through WhatsApp, right? There are some companies, who actually put the job on various job sites, and in some
Hmm.
companies you have ATS, right? And
Yeah.
then when you receive the resume, sometimes you don't receive resume at all, which means that you have a position. You want to have 10 resume, you just have 3 resumes, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes you need 10 resume and you get 500 resumes, right? Both of these are problems, because if you have 10 resume, you need to, get more resumes. If you have 500 resume, now you need to spend time to look at all of those, reject the things which are not relevant to you, and then do that. Right now you look at one more this thing, and there's some time thing which I will add to all of this, right? What
Hmm.
happens is that after you do that, then you need to do something called offline interviews, which is more of people talking to people. And then
Yeah.
you will put job description into this one, right? There's one more thing. Maybe you and me, we are running two different companies. I would like the whole process to run in certain way, which means that I want to send the email to the candidate once they have applied. If they have rejected, I want to send the rejection email. If they have
Hmm.
not, I would like to schedule interview with them in couple of days time, or I want to call them immediately, right?
Right.
Now imagine all the things I've talked to you so far are available in one AI tool. That is what Gigan is. Okay.
Wow.
It can create job description for you. It can broadcast the jobs on wherever you want. It can get the resumes from wherever you have access to. You can connect Gigin to various job platforms, to various ATSs. You can upload your own resumes, right? Then all the
Hmm.
resumes come to a central place above for that position, that you're looking at. And then for those resumes, you don't have to scan those 500 resumes. Now for one resume, a recruiter may end up spending 2 minutes time. You add into 500 resumes, right? You actually would be spending one third or maybe half of your week just screening the resumes, right? How
Hmm.
much time you would take using Gigin? Less than, say, 5 minutes, all done. Actually,
Right.
5 minutes is really on the outer side, but in split of second you can do that. And then
Wow.
many times, you will see that these resumes are not, they're looking too good. Are they, people would, good resumes. So there's a good resume and there's a good candidate, and they may or may not be the same, right? Now you want to have a
Mm,
screening call with them, right? So figure out whether, and we have seen so many times that people end up making resumes with AI, but actually their skill levels are less. But there are
mm,
some people who don't use AI. The resumes may not look that good, but the candidate quality is good.
yeah.
So we have a calling agent also, which actually calls the candidate and will compare those candidates against the job description and then
Mm,
give the assessment in something, and everything is documented. It's in your hand. So it's the design that we use is called HITL, or human in the loop. Humans,
mhm,
have control everywhere that I just described. You can, override anything. You can do this thing. And the just some time ago, told you that you can actually do the customization of the workflow based on how your work culture of the company is. So you don't need to adapt with the tool. The tool will wrap around the culture and the way you are doing, right. I think that's a
right.
high level thing, and I can go much in detail into technology and what we are doing. But purely from a concept perspective, this is how it works.
Mhm,
Now, what does that result into, right? You get a lot of your time back. You
yeah.
lot, you're just imagine all the things which I've shared, right? You don't, and
Mhm,
you're doing nothing manually, and I'll tell you about how the agentic AI works in a moment. But you get all of this time back. You don't need
mhm,
too many tools because you are doing sourcing, screening, managing the jobs, everything at one place. So which means that your investment in tool goes less, which means lesser
mhm,
cost, right?
yeah.
Obviously now you're efficient, right? So that is what Gigan gives you. And we have a multi-collar capability, which is it is strange, but you know when I was looking at in some of the companies I used to work for, every tool is for white collar people, and there is hardly any tool you will see that who are focusing on gray collar people or blue collar people, everything else, right? What
Mm,
tool can manage, you're a manufacturing company, you're manufacturing auto, right? Or cars or whatever, right? So you will need engineers who are doing very high tech job, but you need people who are on the shop floor who are
yeah.
managing, and you also need field sales people. Now imagine, if you have to recruit, in most of the companies I've seen, you will have pool ABC for the first set of people,
Mm,
DEF for the second set of people, and XYZ for the other set of people, and then whole sprawl of referrals and running campaigns and agencies and everything else, right? You don't need any of
mhm,
that. All you need is Gigin, and you can do the multicolor stuff. And it goes back to how Mahesh, who's my co-founder, he has very deep tech experience. He's build the architecture in such a way that we it has called quote unquote multicolor capability, right? So I think that's what
mm,
Gigin is about. I hope you got the idea, and happy to take any more
yeah.
insightful questions from you.
Sure. No, no, that absolutely, absolutely. That I think that covers it very well because from what you mentioned, it seems like a pretty much an all round tool, right? Everything in one place that you need. And I think, these days where companies have just so many different softwares they're using that probably they don't need all of these softwares, right? You're able to bring that all together under one system. I think it's a massive benefit for
Yeah, yeah.
anyone, who chooses to use it. I
And
suppose now if we look,
we call
yeah,
it full stack solution, right? Full
full
stack
stack.
meaning that you don't need to worry about anything. You have one tool.
Mm,
That one tool can take over everything that you're doing. Works
yeah.
almost like a virtual assistant to you, and
Mm,
somebody who's doing the work, not like making you do the work. The tools make you do a lot of work, by the way.
yeah. Yeah. No, very true. Very true. I think if we look at now, based on that, the current state for gigging right now, what would you say is generally working well for you right now? And perhaps on the flip side, what's maybe harder or frustrating right now for you?
Yeah, there are new things which I would say working well, right? Where anybody who's seeing the tool, they're very impressed. They want to,
Mm,
get the tool very quickly, right? But what also is happening at the same time, which is related to this, is the change that people are going through. It becomes scary that I, as a recruiter, one of the main thing which I'm doing through the day is screening resume, right? And I
mm,
spend my full day in screening the resumes. Now all of that is done by AI, so there's a bit of thing which we are seeing, that is this tool complementing or competing with us, right? And that is
mhm,
where the key. We noticed, not in a formal meetings, but informally we do hear this thing that, hey, this is this tool competing, right? I believe
Mm,
that it happens when such kind of great technological advancement happens. So people go through those changes. However, the way I look at it, people when they start to use the tool, they become highly addicted to it.
mm,
Because you now can spend more quality time in your core job rather than doing something called a data janitorial work. No, you don't need to. Either you have
mm.
something which can do that for you.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a great point because as this, of course, only gets stronger and stronger, that's going to make more of a difference in the work that it's doing. I've spoken to quite a lot of founders, more traditional recruiting firm founders, and they've all said that in the next 10 years, the firms that will win are the companies that are able to match AI and the human together. So from your perspective, do you share that view, or do you think AI has the potential to perhaps replace recruiters altogether?
Oh no, I don't think that AI will replace anybody. AI will
Mm,
strengthen people. I have seen that with my own experience. My own experience. See, there was a time
mhm,
when mobile phone was just used for calling.
mm,
And that is when I got into job actually. And I was very happy to, show off to people that, hey, I have a mobile phone, right? Later, the mobile phone started to come with with a radio and a camera and few of the games. And those were happy moments, right? That now you don't need to, you can do all of this, in this thing. Then, you started to see camera and, it was like big revolution, right? But the main thing that happened was when the commerce started to happen on this thing, right? People were going through this whole mental, how do I say, struggle that should I need to go to a physical shop to buy a shoe or to buy a shirt. How can I buy something till the time I don't see, right? How can I transact my money through mobile phone? It is all of these things. When the app started to come, we're going through. But what has happened now? There are everybody's used to it. In fact, it is very difficult for us not to imagine a life where I cannot order my food, where I cannot
mm,
order my shoes, where I cannot order my shirt sitting at home, right? I don't want to go to traffic. I don't want to waste like 3 hours in this thing, right? So people started to see this. But what has happened with that, right? There are still shops and they are existing, they're coexisting, right? But at the same
mm,
time, convenience get by either making the payment over the phone or buying things over the phone or doing anything for that matter on the phone. When in my society we use a app in which even if some visitor is coming to you, you need to approve the visitor whether it's a
mm,
legit person. So it has the it has penetrated every aspect of your life. So the mobile technology, but initially people used to struggle that, hey, this will I remember that there were lot of these things that, hey, this will not work, that's not going to work, right? But what happens
mm,
is that when the tech start to evolve, there's a second order and third order and fourth order things that starts to happen. This created jobs for people who are into delivery. A lot of warehouses started to happen. There is a concept of cloud kitchen which was non-existent, right?
mm.
And all
Yeah.
of these things started to happen, and that creates huge amount of jobs and this thing, right? Let's apply that to AI, right? So what we are seeing right now is that there are certain jobs which are definitely getting better by the use of AI. But when the
Mm,
dust settles, I'm super confident that the second level, the second order effect will create a lot more job. I'll give you one example, right? Say right now you need to a medicine for you because you have a fever, right? And I also need a medicine that I have a fever. We go to a doctor. Probably
mm,
doctor will give us the same medicine because both of us we have a fever, right? But just imagine 2 years from now or 3 years from now, whole of your health records are there in your app, and you have uh whole of this thing of your, say, allergies, your blood group and your maybe your genetic code or every whatever is there in this thing, right? Now when
mhm.
both of us we are going to the doctor, you and me will get a different drug based on our genetic profile, right?
Yeah.
Now, who will give you that drug? Probably somebody needs to come in and make that drug for us, because it might happen that it is not one drug, which is
Mm,
working for both you and me and 100 other people or 1,000 other people, but it'll be
yeah.
1,000 different drugs. I'm just making it up, right? But those kind of
Mm,
things seems to be real. Space
mm,
exploration will go to the next level, right? With AI, the all quite a bit of things which were not possible before. We are seeing
Mhm.
that those doors will start to open. That will create huge amount of new jobs, right? Ultimately, because now you have a so what is AI giving us? It is giving us intelligence as a commodity, right? Which means that earlier, if I have to go and read 10 books and hire 10 people, now I have a technology which will enable me to come up with products much faster, which essentially means that the quality of life will improve, and there'll be new kind of jobs that will get created to
Mhm.
just take care of maintaining that quality of life. If you apply
Sure,
that to
sure.
say e-commerce, right, the same thing happened. When the quality of life or the convenience improved, there are a lot of jobs that got created just to match up with that. So that is what I see the world is headed towards. Apply it to
Mm,
now recruiting, right? Now people become super efficient in terms of screening the resumes and everything that that takes a lot of this thing, right? What will you do? You will spend a
mm,
lot of time to really engage with people that, hey, this is my company. You will be doing that for the great candidate, right? So say you are offering 10 people and right now only 7 are joining. Maybe all 10 might join because now the human connection has gone much better. In some of the companies, the dropout ratio goes to 40 to 50%, and everything that you have spent time on recruiting will go away, right? So
mm.
those things, which for which the real functions were created, which will start to come in, and for all there will be different kind of jobs that will start to get created, right? So that's my fundamental belief. I'm just like waiting to see how this will unfold, but I am more proponent of AI that this will make our life better. This will
Mm.
create huge amount of jobs, and this will take things to a very high level of convenience which we can't even imagine right now. Make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned right, it's exciting times ahead. Because we don't know where this can go and where this can take us potentially. I suppose if we look at you right now and gigging, over the next sort of 6 to 12 months, what are some goals you'd say right now for you guys?
Yeah, so we have a strong product, and the product is not something which people have seen. So we are
Mm,
just making sure that our GTM goes to the next level. We, we had a long plan from quite some time that we are selling our product globally. So
mhm,
we are seeing a lot of traction in the US. Right now, we have entered in the US. We might be coming to Europe very soon. That's something which is already in the plan.
mhm,
So the reason we are so confident is that this tool is quite global. What I described to you, it's a pain that everybody experiences globally, right?
mhm.
You don't need multiple tools. You don't need so many things. You don't need so many hands off. It's a pain, which everybody would feel over the globe, and we have a solution to it. How we can take it to people globally? That's a key focus for us, right?
Sure, sure. And I suppose you know that you mentioned go to market across the globe as a goal. Potentially, what would you say is one thing maybe holding you back from that right now?
No, there's nothing holding back. Actually, the thing
Mm,
is, we when you go deeper into it, right?
mm,
If you have a platform, say you develop your platform for the US, right? Can you take that platform immediately to say Germany or France or maybe yes, but then you will be very very constrained only for people who are you know good with English, right? How do you understand those local nuances and things like those, right? It is not very
sure,
difficult, but you need to spend some time to make
of
sure
course.
that in tech term it's called localization, that you do
Mhm,
localization of the tool. So we have localized the tool to quite some generic places.
mhm.
That's the but if you don't localize, adoption will be poor, and we need to take care of that. I think those are the things that we are working on right now. It's a big focus for us.
Sure, sure. And I suppose, final question for me to finish off is, you know, AI is obviously developing at such a rapid pace. How are you, running your agentic AI solution? How are you able to keep up with those changes that are happening so rapidly within the space?
Oh yeah, I think this question may be very good for my co-founder Mahesh. He's brilliant actually. The way he looks at learning technology and making sure that people in the team are learning technology is
Mhm,
magnificent, right? Uh, the if you look at say a couple of years ago, we used to have everybody doing the coding. We are now a AI first company. I don't think the the coding is being done so we are using all the right tools for that.
Hmm.
Despite of that, we have been able to, get to a level where where everybody now has gotten used to the new way of working. There is one more important thing. I think, if you look at AI, say 10 years from now, it was all AI, in terms of ML and data science, and you build tools on top of that. And then,
Hmm.
LLM started to come, and most of the people, who are retail user, they know that AI is all about various LLMs and chat GPT and, Claude and, where, or Gemini, where you're getting the answers right. Agentic
Hmm.
is very, very different. Agentic, has a goal-driven behavior. You can define your agent to get certain things done for you. I was telling you about some of our agents, right? They actually, take the workflow and start to work towards an objective. It doesn't work like an LLM. And we have to put a lot of infrastructure. We have to put a lot of intelligence. It's a complex, architecture that we have gone to. So you need
Hmm.
to have that eye of constant learning, which I take really good proud of that our teams have been able to
Hmm.
do that actually.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Well, it sounds like an amazing journey so far, and it seems to me that you guys are right at the forefront of this race, and there's no doubt in my mind that over the coming years that this is I mean it's already pretty global, but this is I can see this rolling across the globe, because it seems clear that you have very strong product. It's just about once everyone hears about it, then they'll be on the bandwagon. But Surinder, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a super busy guy, but thank you so much for taking time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and some amazing insights from you, so thank
No,
you.
no, thanks to you. I think I really loved all the questions and the insights that you brought in, Karan, today. It was just a great pleasure talking to you today. Okay.